This is Huntsville Sports Weekly, where we talk all things Huntsville, Texas sports, Hornets, Bearkats, and more. And now, here's your hosts, Rob Hipp and Josh Criswell.
All right, friends. Rob Hipp here, sports director with KSAM, and now joined by my good friend, Mr. Josh Criswell, the sports editor of the Huntsville Item. Josh, good to be back. Episode number 9 here of Huntsville Sports Weekly. We got a fun show lined up today. We're going to hear from head coach Jason Hooten, the head basketball coach of Sam Houston State. How's it going today, Josh?
Doing fantastic. You know, it's crazy to think we're 9 weeks into this thing, and this is going to be our first show where we have a Huntsville Hornet football game to actually talk about.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that. Of course, a great victory last week, and the Hornets doing a good job there. And, it's been fun through these first 9 episodes, Josh, as we've heard from different coaches throughout, not just Huntsville with the Hornets, but we've heard from Sam Houston State coaches and digging in a little bit more of that today. But, here in this first segment, just kind of teasing what we're going to talk about, we'll talk a little bit about this right out of the gate. We've got a hurricane brewing again down in the Gulf, and it's maybe a major one when it makes landfall right now. The latest predictions, unfortunately, right around Louisiana again, and maybe affecting Lake Charles. And that's already causing some schedule shifting here in our area with high school football, Josh.
Yeah, the New Waverly Bulldogs, who opened up district play with a 38-0 shutout win over Warren last Friday. They had their game against Newton that was scheduled for Friday night, bumped up to Thursday at 6 p.m. Newton, a little bit southeast of Beaumont, so they're potentially in that, path of that storm, or at least, are expected to be impacted by rain this weekend. So getting that game in as soon as possible, hopefully no hiccups. And then, Huntsville, or fortunately as well, having that game on Thursday scheduled is going to be a big help if there's any storms in the Houston area.
Well, our prayers will remain with all of those folks down in the Gulf Coast, especially in Louisiana. And as we go, we're going to play, as far as the Huntsville Hornets, on Thursday. That'll be on the road at Kingwood. So back-to-back games to start the season for your Hornets. Of course, we'll talk about that coming up in the third segment. We did have a chance, though, to catch up with head coach Jason Hooten earlier in the week, and wanted to talk to him this week and have him on the show. And, they haven't, as far as Sam Houston State, the men's basketball program, they haven't been together a whole lot. Things have been extremely limited due to COVID. Practices are finally really going to get into rhythm, I believe, starting on Monday. They were only together for about 10 days since all this COVID hit. So there's a lot going on with the basketball team that they want to get back into action, and looking forward to chatting with Coach Hooten today here, Josh.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, for a team that I think has 8 newcomers, it's going to be big getting as many of these practices as they can in before the season gets going. I'm going to hear from head coach Jason Hooten in just a minute, but, touch on a couple things. We talk about some key guys coming back. DeMarcus Lampley is a guy who really stepped up, started some games and primarily was a big 6th man for them. And then also Zach Nuttall, who's coming back for his junior season and really emerged as the go-to guy last year. One thing we didn't touch on, but I did want to mention is, something that could be interesting with the team is they've got some really talented forwards coming in. So I'm interested to see, play a lot of, smaller lineups because of the pieces that you have on the team in recent years. But I'm interested to see with some of these post guys coming in, via transfer, like Manny Crump, Tristan Ickby, and then, Dylan Robertson, who's 6'10", a guy that can play above the rim. So I'm interested to see, the style of play and, what we see from the Bearkats out there this season.
Yeah, excited about just the opportunities for sports to happen again. And, it still feels kind of strange in a way, Josh, because we're starting to have some normalcy, but there's all these protocols and all these things in place that are really limiting certain abilities to go out and have practice and to do things. I was talking to our media relations contact there with Sam Houston State University earlier today, just asking from a media standpoint, our accessibility to practice. And as it stands right now, if we do things, we go over to the athletic office, they check our temperature. As far as I know right now, I don't know the protocol over at the Coliseum. So we'll have to figure that out, of course, so we can go in and watch some of these practices, Josh.
Yeah, absolutely. But, fortunately for now, Coach Hooten gave us a little bit of, a peek behind the curtain, and we'll hear from him next as he helps us preview this upcoming season and, just talk about what to expect in these months ahead. Welcome back to Huntsville Sports Weekly. I'm Josh Criswell, joined by my co-host Rob Hipp as always. And right now, welcome to the special guest, Sam Houston State head basketball coach, Jason Hooten. Coach, thanks for taking a few minutes to chat with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me on. And, I know this is kind of awkward always doing these Zooms, but it looks like it's a way of life now, and we all need to get used to it, I guess.
Hey, Coach, good to see you. Just like you said, these Zooms, it's starting to feel kind of like this is reality. And I don't know if that's a good thing or not a good thing, Coach, but good to see you. Appreciate your time today. I kind of wanted to lead with my question about COVID. It's affecting everyone, Coach. And I just wanted to lead with that with you is how has this pandemic kind of affected your team, and what have you guys done as far as preparation and handling this off season and the unknowns, Coach? How have you been able to kind of progress and move through that with your team?
Yeah, it's been difficult to say the least. And, as far as how it has affected our team, I would say, quite a bit. It started, this summer, not being able to have these guys here this summer and have access to them was very difficult. It just kind of makes you feel like you're behind the eight ball from the beginning. And then, once we got here and started trying to practice a little bit, we've had a lot of shutdowns here and there. So, to just be able to get your team together and to have them all together at the same time on the floor together, it's been very difficult. In fact, since March the 10th, we've had our whole team together for only 10 days of practice. So, I'm obviously nervous and a little worried having 8 new players and having so much to teach and learn. But it is what it is, so to speak, and we just got to try to continue to make the best of it.
Right, Coach, one of the uncertainties, obviously, I'm sure, is the scheduling. At least it was last time I spoke to you a couple months ago. How's that all, played out? Are y'all starting to get a little bit of clarity on who y'all are going to be playing this upcoming season? Or, what's the outlook for that as of right now?
Well, we still have a long ways to go with our schedule and a lot of work to do. Clarity is something that maybe we're starting to see a little bit of, but from November the 10th until the 25th, which is our new start date, we lost about 8 games in that stretch. So just right off the bat, there's 7 to 8 games that you're trying to reschedule and replace. The hard part, Josh, is during that time period, those were our money games. Those were our high major games, our games that, do us a lot of good in a financial situation, but as well as, competitive and getting us prepared for conference situation as well. So we have a lot of work to do. We've put a few together. It's hard to talk about them because we haven't got all of our contracts signed and back yet. And I'm hoping that by the end of this week, which still gives me, 3 or 4 days, I'm hoping that we can, as you said, have some clarity and know a little bit more about our preseason schedule for sure.
Right, and you mentioned having 8 new guys on your team, but have some key guys coming back as well. Zach Nuttall, one of the first team all-conference players in the Southland last year. But also 2 guys that are going to be seniors or playing their first year last year, and that's DeMarcus Lampley and Terriante Thomas. With those 2, have you seen them kind of take on a little bit of a leadership role as the 2 seniors on this team?
Yeah, I think so. But again, I don't want to continue to talk about the subject and make it sound like we're making some excuses, but we just really haven't had a chance to do a whole lot. I mean, 10 days together it's just not very long. And so I just can't, there's no question that, both of those guys will be better and have been better in the short time that we've worked because, they're a year older. They've been in our program and our system, and they understand what it's about. They also understand what we expect. But as far as vocal, I have seen Lampley take a step. I mean, he's definitely a guy who seems to be focused. And again, I think last year was really good for him and Terriante both. But, just wish we could get out there and hopefully we will. Hopefully we have a lot of this behind us. And here in the next couple of weeks, we start real practice October 14th, which is next Wednesday. And so I'm hoping that by then we're full force and that we're ready to go. And I'll know a lot more by then.
Well, Coach, again, appreciate your time. Typically this is part of the interview where I ask you, about the team chemistry, but only been together for 10 days, so you can't really talk much about that. So I'll just ask you this, Coach, and it's kind of an open-ended question, of course, wanting to start practicing and playing. What are you most hopeful for this season coming up?
Yeah, I just hope that we can all continue to stay safe. And, I really hope that we get to a point where we can have some fans. And, I know that, watching whether it's basketball or football or soccer, volleyball, baseball, whatever the sport is, I know that brings a lot of joy to people. And I think right now in our country and in our community, trying to find that joy and that getaway and, something that you really enjoy to do. I think all of us need a little bit of that. And my part is just being able to be with my team and go to practice and work every day. I think sometimes, we look back now, but some of those things we probably took a little bit for granted and just expected all those things to always be there and always happen. And then when they're taken from us, again, I think there's a lot more appreciation for it. And, I just want to go to practice. I just want to have our guys in there. Rob, one thing I've noticed so far in the short time that we've worked is we've got a really, we've got a hardworking group. And I do think we'll have more leadership than we did last year with Lampley. And obviously Zach has really taken it to another level. He's really grown and matured. And I've seen a lot of leadership qualities in him thus far. But I do think we got a team that's going to work hard and a team that really cares for each other. I think these guys really like each other. And so far they really seem coachable and they want to be better and get better. So I'm excited. Other than us not being able to be there a lot together, I'm really excited right now from what I've seen in this short period of time.
Coach, you mentioned Zach, a guy who really emerged as a go-to guy for y'all last season, and mentioned his growth as a leader. Looking ahead, and I guess we can close on this. He's a guy who we've talked about how he's a special talent here, and I just want to ask you, how high is his ceiling as a player, and also, where does he need to improve and grow the most to help y'all be a championship team this next season?
Yeah, Josh, he is a very talented young man. Offensively, maybe as good as any guy I've ever coached, and just being able to get a basket and make a shot. And, there's a lot to be said for guys like that. The biggest thing with Zach, and I thought what would take him to that next step is his leadership. I thought at times last year, it wasn't consistent. And, I challenged him this offseason, this summer, and he's done a great job up until this point. But again, we've still got a lot to do and a long ways to go. But I've been very encouraged thus far in what he's done. And, the other thing is just consistently defending and rebounding, and those two things, I told him this morning, we had a 8 a.m. practice this morning. We had 9 guys this morning. So, again, we were still 6 short of having our whole team. But we had 9 this morning in workouts. And, I told him just how good he was as far as his leadership and talking. And, his comment was, Coach, that's what I want to do. Stay on me, to make sure that I'm doing that. And, his attitude has been great. And that's what's going to make him great. I told him that there's a difference in being really good and there's a difference in being special and great. He wants to be special and great. And if he can continue with his leadership qualities that he's possessing right now, and then he can defend and rebound at the level he's capable of, the sky's the limit. I mean, he could be one of the best players that we've ever had here at Sam Houston State.
All right, Coach. Well, that's all I got for you today. Rob, do you have anything else?
No, we appreciate your time, Coach. Just like you, I'm excited about the upcoming season and hopeful that everything will remain safe, and looking forward to getting back out there on the hardwood with you, Coach. So thanks for all you do and your accessibility. We appreciate you.
Yeah, no, thank you for you two guys. I mean, I've said this time and time again, and every opportunity I get, I want to share this with all the viewers out there, but we're very blessed to have 2 guys like you that really care about our programs and our community. And, just do such a great job of covering our guys and giving them, give them that credibility and giving them that outlet and that media, and that's really important to all of our programs. So we appreciate both you guys.
All right. Well, thanks, Coach. That'll end this segment. We appreciate your time. Stay with us, friends. Huntsville Sports Weekly continues here in just a few moments. All right, friends, welcome back. Good to hear from head coach Jason Hooten just a few moments ago. I'm Rob Hitt, back with Josh Criswell, and it was good to hear some of those thoughts from Coach Hooten. There's still a lot of uncertainty as far as the way things at Sam Houston basketball are going, but we do know that practices are getting underway finally, and we still don't know anything as far as the way games are going. We're still waiting on a schedule. There's several non-conference games that Sam Houston has lost when the NCAA, of course, pushed the start date back to November the 25th. The Southland Conference hasn't even released the league schedule yet, and basketball gets started in just a month. So we'll just have to see how that goes. But as far as that, we'll have more information down the road. But Josh, let's get to talking about those Hornets. A convincing victory to start things in the Hornets' first game. They go 1-0 on the season after a 48-17 victory this past Friday at Willis.
Yeah, and a 48-17 victory, and it was really more dominant than that. Because I think it was 41-6 at the half, and really the Bearkats had turned that thing into a blowout by the late stages of the first quarter. So in control the full way. Recently, actually, Huntsville moved up to number 7 in the Houston area media poll for Class 5A. So moving up from number 8 to number 7 after that big win, and if they get another win over another 6A opponent this weekend, I'm sure they're just going to keep climbing. But, something that me and you want to do every week now that Huntsville football is in full swing is give out, one game ball each to a player that really stood out, whether it was on the stat sheet or making a key play in a key moment. We're going to give out one game ball each. And Rob, we'll start it off with you.
Yeah, well, and this is something really cool that I'm looking forward to doing every week now. Of course, my game ball this week is going to go to Ethan Miner, the senior defensive back. Many know that was his first varsity game. We got to hear from him on the Hornet Nation coaches show that we had just a couple of days ago. Ethan Miner, though, 3 interceptions. He joked around on the show, Josh. He said, we asked him, what can you improve on? Well, you had 3 grabs, 3 interceptions in a game, so there's not a whole lot you can improve on. And we were joking with him, and he goes, I was thinking maybe I'll try to get 5 interceptions the next game. That's what he was telling us off camera. But 3 interceptions, and then something that got overlooked by that young man also is he recovered a fumble in the end zone for a touchdown as well. So just an all-around great defensive effort by Ethan Miner. You talk about a kid that it was his first varsity game. That is a way to make your varsity debut. My game ball goes out to the defensive back, again, Ethan Miner this week.
Absolutely. You can't argue with that selection at all. That was really a turning. I don't necessarily want to say a turning point because the Hornets were in control early, but I feel like that fumble return for a touchdown really was the moment where you could kind of tell that this game was a little bit out of reach. And just a huge performance for a kid playing his first varsity game. Head coach Rodney Southern, mentioned his name to me several times as one of the players that has really kind of stepped out throughout this unusual offseason that included no spring ball and then having to deal with all the social distancing and everything. But he was one of the stars throughout the offseason, and now it obviously showed up big in week 1. A player for me, I'm going to keep it on the defensive side as well. And that senior defensive lineman, Edward Bobino, part of a defensive line that really wreaked havoc on Willis all night long. First half alone had 4 sacks, and that really kind of set the tone. And really, you could tell that Willis was becoming a little bit more timid each time they came off the ball. And it wasn't just Ed, his brother Brian up there next to him, of course, and then Quatarian Riles, and then Sebastian Patterson coming off the edge. I, lost count of how many times I saw Sebastian just spin out of a block with ease. And, whether might not have got a sack, might not have got tackled for loss, but it disrupted the play and led to one of the handful of incompletions that we saw in the game. another guy I want to mention too, there's a couple of them that kind of stood out. One in the return game, I thought Jadarian White really had a big game. A guy who came back to football for his senior season, obviously a star on the basketball court, but came in and made a really big impact in punt returns, giving the Hornets short fields to work with several times there, early on, and really helped them build that big lead in the first half. And then another guy that really impressed me was obviously Jordan Woodbury. He also had another big play, 7-6 early on. Willis drives down, answers back with like a 95-yard touchdown drive to bring the game to 1 point. And then all of a sudden, Jordan just takes the ball back 103 yards for a touchdown on the kickoff. And that really just tipped everything in Huntsville's favor as far as the momentum. Brought in another touchdown pass from A.J. Wilson, who had 3 total touchdowns on the day. And then in addition to that touchdown, there was also 2 or 3 occasions where Jordan, he had broke free of the Willis defensive back, and he was wide open for what could have easily been, at least 1 or 2 more touchdowns. So he was a player who really stood out and, made a key play in a key moment that really shifted the whole momentum of that game.
You just mentioned A.J. Wilson, and for him, of course, playing a couple of games last year, but now the starting quarterback this season and almost 200 yards through the air. But give that offensive line credit, Josh. This is an offense, we've talked about it so many times, that's pretty much revamped. Your thoughts on that offensive line in this first game? I think they did an extremely great job. They gave A.J. a lot of protection, created some holes for the backs to get through. Just an all-out great game for that relatively new offense for the Hornets.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned that because, obviously they kept A.J. upright, which is going to be key for this team this season, but also really helped them get the running game going. That offensive line only brings back one player that had really any varsity experience in Jose Cruz, but they looked like a veteran squad out there. They had, I think, Jalen McClain had 80 yards rushing and a touchdown in his first varsity game. And, they just really kept drives going throughout the night. Would have liked to see more of that in the second half. But, whenever you're up by almost 40 points, it's understandable to see them let off the gas a little bit. So that's the thing I'm going to be interested to see, whether they keep this thing close or if it gets out of hand again. You want to see them have that consistency in the first quarter that you have in the fourth quarter.
Well, we're talking here again, Rob Hipp with Josh Criswell in this final segment, and now facing Kingwood, the Mustangs on the road, Humboldt, Texas, back-to-back road games to start this season. And this is a team that's 0-2. They're hungry for a win, and they're under their first-year head coach. Looking forward to the game, though. And the Hornets, one thing that I think they're going to have to do a good job of, they kind of let their guard down in that second half versus Willis. A lot of penalties. They were outscored after going up 41-6 at the half, but a lot of penalties there in the second half. But it wasn't the same type of penalties as last year that we saw. These were more, as I was talking to Coach Southern earlier in our weekly interview, these were more of what he calls hustle penalties. And sometimes, you have the horse collar. You don't mean to reach and grab on to another player and pull them down like that. So it was more hustle penalties, but it's something they're definitely going to have to be mindful of and continue to clean up this season. Kind of your thoughts on that, Josh?
Yeah, and I think one of the things I noticed is that, yes, there were a lot of penalties. I know they had over 100 yards in penalties on the game, but the fact that they were still able to get the level of production that they had, I think they had over at least 100 yards in the first half on penalties, and they were still up 41-6. So like Coach Southern told you, some of those hustle penalties, that means that you're playing the game with that kind of mindset where you're going to be hustling to the ball and swarming, and you're going to get, like you mentioned, a horse collar here or there, maybe a face mask. So I think you would rather see a team that's setting the tone early, and even and the big thing is we saw them give up these penalties, but it didn't necessarily result in anything getting going for Willis. They might give up a 10-15 yard penalty, and then they'd answer right back with a stop. So I like that they had that aggressive mentality, and especially early on, even laid off 9 months or so. I like that they were coming out with that intensity and aggressiveness instead of it being the other way around.
Kind of still 2 preseason games, if you will. Non-conference games is a better way to put it, as we've got Kingwood coming up and then CE King. And then it starts district play with Brian Rutter. So still some opportunities here for Huntsville to continue to get better. They've got to really keep their composure, though. Brian Rutter coming out of the gates early this season, and they're putting up a lot of yards and a lot of points early on. And we'll see how that goes as the season goes on, Josh.
Yeah, definitely going to be an interesting district opener. Brian Rutter is going to be much more of a threat than recent years. Really good quarterback receiver connection that's going to be up there with the best in the district. But, first things first is going to be this Thursday down in Humble against Kingwood. So I'm just excited to see that one.
We'll be down there. Of course, we'll have the game live on 101.7 KSAM and the Hornet Nation Broadcast Network. You can also watch the games. Just head over to our website at ksam1017.com. Josh Criswell, the Huntsville Item, you'll be down on the sidelines doing amazing work for sideline reporting and what you do. And by the way, I wanted to say thank you, man. It's been fun through that first game, having you down there on the field, getting that perspective. Where we're at, we're having to sit in the middle of the fans, and we're going to have to do that again this week, which I'm excited about that, to be honest. If there's an opportunity that as a broadcaster, it's a beautiful night, because let's be honest, it was perfect football weather last Friday. If we can be in the middle of our fans, I would take that any day of the week. The energy is there. There's just something about it, but we can't see every little thing that goes on down on the field. So it's nice having you down there saying, hey, we saw that flag. We weren't able to catch exactly what happened. What did you see down there, Josh? So appreciate you being there and doing that, man.
No, absolutely. It's been a blast, and I appreciate, y'all including me and the Huntsville Item in on this year's broadcast.
You got it. Well, friends, that'll do it for this edition of Huntsville Sports Weekly. We'll be back next week, packed with more sports news going on throughout Huntsville, Texas. Until then, make sure to like us on Facebook. Josh, your social media pages and how folks can get in touch with you.
You can find me at item_Criswell on Twitter, and follow the Huntsville Item on Facebook. And as always, go to itemonline.com/sports. We'll have highlights up throughout the game along with updates. We'll embed, y'all's live video broadcast as well. So itemonline.com/sports, and we'll have you covered for all things Texas high school football.
And finally, I did want to mention Wednesday, coming up next Wednesday, make sure to join us 6:30 p.m. Not this Wednesday, next Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. as we will have the Hornet Nation Coaches Show live inside of HEB from True Texas Barbecue. Had a great first show. We had to do it on Monday this week, but going forward, it'll be every Wednesday at 6:30. You can also catch that on the radio on 101.7 KSAM as well. Josh, good to see you, man, and we're looking forward to the game coming up on Thursday.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
All right, friends, as I end every broadcast, reminding you today that we're not strong enough alone to make it on our own. We need each other. Provide a word of encouragement. Lend a hand of support. Somebody out there needs you. Good evening. God bless. We'll see you on Thursday. Take care, everyone.
See you next time.